And we are almost live.
This cat's a teenager. It's a brat.
All right, we're live now.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna send Keisha the. Wait a minute.
Yeah. What's up, Anna? Let's do this.
All right. Hey, what's up, everybody?
What's going down, people?
Hey, welcome to
before we get started, let me give a shout out to Tifa. I know you know, I think she told you because she was supposed to come on the show tonight, but today is her I think she's doing a video shoot.
Oh, I didn't hear from. Oh man, I just heard from her earlier today. She's not even supposed to come on. Did you just hear from her?
No, she sent. I thought she had sent me something saying she was going to come on your show on Tuesday, but she forgot.
She must have sent because I sent a message to her about noon about something and got one back and she didn't say, but.
Well, anyway, shout out to Tifa and her video shoot. She must be doing it
big. Tifa, Trika is coming on.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about Tifa.
Oh no, Tifa's not coming. No, she's not coming on tonight. That wasn't scheduled.
Yeah, no, I guess she assumed it was, but she did say that she apologized. Something she had told me that she forgot she had a video shoot today or something. So she wasn't scheduled. I guess it didn't matter. But
no,
video shoot.
No, she wasn't scheduled. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think she just needs to. Yeah, she was scheduled, and yeah, she told me. I mean, last I spoke to her, she wasn't able to do it, and so yeah. But yeah, I get the Tifa Trika. No, Trika's coming on at 9:30.
Yeah, Trika is coming on.
Yes. Yeah. And then I just sent a message with the link to Keisha, who's coming on with her book. So yes, we're having a book reading tonight, people.
Nice.
Memoirs from a Daughter.
I was keeping that out, man. That looks like that book's gonna be sad, man. I was like, ooh. I was looking at that. I was like, wow.
It's an intense book. It really is. So yeah, it is. I wrote a little review of it, and I told her that I would help do some bookstore readings because I was like, yeah, you know, if you come on, it's to like, you got to read from your book. That's what makes people want to buy it. So yeah, but then we'll have to make sure that two different things at once, that we have the information in the chat. And yeah. So the fucking Senate 50-50. No, so they were unable to debate the Voting Rights Act. Our government is crazy.
So neither one wins on that one, right? Is that what happens?
Well, the Republicans win because if they can't get it to the floor, then it can't be passed. So yeah, the Republicans win.
Okay, so now explain exactly. So you're kind of saying that the Republicans won. So I'm assuming, from what I know from it, maybe I'm wrong, is this the act of like certain people can't vote or something of that nature?
Not.
Is that what the Republicans are trying to do? Something that they were trying to do?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to keep certain people from voting. They're trying to make it hard for people to vote, certain people to vote.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. what it does, and this has always been the fight whenever anybody wants to pass civil rights or voting rights law. It's a I don't even know everything that it says, but it gives the federal government the right to intervene in states that are passing unfair election laws. And so the Republicans, when something like that happens, just start shrieking about how that's federal government overreach. That's always what they claim, that it's a power grab by the federal government. That's always been how they managed to keep racist policies. So you need to, I can't remember if you need a simple, so the issue that comes up is the filibuster. And that means, because the vote right now was just to get it to the floor. So I think they just needed a simple majority for that. But every so, you win if a ballot isn't brought to the floor, because that means it's not even discussed. And then what will happen, the argument is the filibuster. And the filibuster means that you need to have 60 votes. You need to have 60 people to vote in order to force a vote. It's the same principle as the Electoral College, in a way that it's saying like, no, you can't have 51-49. It needs to be a little more than that. So, hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
This is Keisha. This is Roselle.
Hi, Roselle.
Hey, what's going on?
Nice to meet you.
Same here.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so this is Global History Radio, and we are having author Keisha Kaniel.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Who will be reading and discussing her book, Memoirs from a Daughter of Crackheads. And so I had the pleasure of hearing Keisha discuss her book on my friend Jamila's podcast a couple of weeks ago. And when I hear author, our show is about creative people, activist people doing anything to come on and talk about it, get the word out. So I was like, yeah, independent author. I wanted her to come on, but I wanted to wait till I read the book. And so I ordered the book as soon as it came out and read it. And I was just like, wow, it's just so well written and just so powerful. Yeah, I have this thing of I am skeptical of a lot of people's memoirs. Yeah. I think too many people write memoirs. People that are not very interesting write memoirs. And it's also, hey, you might have an interesting life, but it doesn't mean you're a good writer.
True.
And it's so, now I'm sure, I'm just giving a little introduction. I know you chime in. It is so much harder than it looks. That's what people, you'll hear. I'm sure you hear all the time from people like, oh yeah, I've had such an interesting life. I'm going to write a memoir. Like, okay. Yeah.
I've heard that a lot. And it wasn't like that for me though. For me, people had to pull that book out of me. Like, me just sharing my life with people.
Yeah.
And then people saying, God, you should write a book about that. For years, I never intended to be an author. It wasn't it wasn't something that I, grew up going, I want to be an author when I grow up,
Mhm.
But yeah, people literally would hear some things that I would say just in talking and telling my story or helping somebody else, like another youth. Um, and then people would say, "You ever consider writing?" And no, no. And then finally one day I just sat down and picked a story, one little story, and just wrote about it. And it was so healing, literally in the moment. It was like a living journal, really. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's great you had people encouraging you,
Mhm.
and yeah,
I'm
yeah,
grateful for them because I never really realized, and even to this day, like I plan to write one more book. That's it. I won't write anymore. Just a follow up to this one, where this one focuses on the mistakes of my parents. The next one will focus on my own mistakes, but as a result of how I grew up and how, so they'll connect nicely. But then after that, I really just want to take both books and help some people to grow, to heal, to start to feel, to start to speak. A lot of times we sweep stuff like this under the rug. We were raised to in our culture. So I think it's time for people to start speaking up and getting, because I think it's the only way to heal is to start talking about it.
yeah,
And mental health and therapy is heavily stigmatized in the African American community, and so it's interesting the feedback that I get. One of the most, all the time I get, somebody was finally courageous enough to tell the story, and that's kind of sad a little bit, because that means a lot of people are walking around with trauma that they're afraid to talk about,
yeah.
and that's kind of sad.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the reasons I certainly hope we'll keep in touch, because I mean, I produced readings for a long time, and it's a great feeling to be contributing to, like you say, people getting their word out. But yeah, I just feel like it's so important for people to see their own experience.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So do you structure your writing time, or do you set
Did
time?
I structure my writing? I'm sorry, you broke up just a
Oh,
little.
do you like write at set times or for set periods, or?
I don't. At the time that I started this book, it was back in 2015. I would literally sit at my desk. Maybe at the time I had a little baby, like my guy he's 7 now. At the time, he was, 1 years old in 2015. So I literally would schedule time in between, like, and at the time I was married, and my husband would say, "Did you write today? Did you write today? Did you write today?" And I would just, pull out some time and sit and just write. Sometimes I would get up from my desk in tears, like I have to go sit in the kitchen for a while. Because, sometimes you don't realize how painful something is until, that's why journaling is so valuable, because it's like having a therapist, and it's like it being you are your own healer, and that's why I encourage journaling so much. But that book was like writing a journal and having me, the little version of me, talking to the big version of me about how she feels, or how what she was going through, and finally she felt heard. I believe heavily in the inner child now, and I didn't even then, at the time that I started writing the book, I didn't even know what an inner child was. But looking back, it was like little Keisha is like, listen, these things happen to us, and this really sucks. And I kind of allowed her to come alive on paper.
Yeah. Well, you sure, I mean, you sure do. It's just, it's so vivid, and, like, I mean, everybody, it's good to journal, but not everybody, not everybody can write a book. And, I mean, as I know you were working, and as a mother, I
Mhm.
mean, that's just really, really remarkable. I mean, it can
Yeah,
definitely be especially challenging for mothers to write.
for
So,
sure. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how I did it.
yeah, yeah, it's so true. Um, and do you have music that inspires you?
Absolutely. Music inspires me in a major way. I wanted to be a singer, when I was a kid. So if you read my book, you'll read a little bit of that. But
Yeah.
music is huge. Oftentimes I listen to music as I write. And then after I was done writing and was going through the edits, I actually put together a playlist and made it available to anybody who wanted to buy the book. It's just a free Spotify playlist and it has the title of the book, but it references songs from that period of time. So
Yeah.
when when I was going through the edits, I would be listening to the music that, I was listening to at the time. It made the experience so different for me. And it was my experience. So I wanted to offer that experience to anybody. So if you were to go to Spotify and search up Memoirs from a Daughter of Crackheads, you see this playlist there and it has pretty much everything I was listening to as a kid.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's remarkable. I mean, shoot, it would be great for somebody. It would be great for, oh, hey, is that Shantae? Hi, sweetie. Okay. Hey, honey.
What up,
Our
Shantae?
Shantae.
Duck
Oh,
City,
good.
Shantae, the queen of the Duck
That's
City.
the queen, all right. Yeah. Yeah. Shantae, I especially was hoping that you would come on while Miss Keisha was here because her book's about growing up in Oakland. And so really, so would you be willing to read from us then?
Sure, no problem. I have the book handy.
Okay.
Any particular story you want?
I think Red Volkswagen Bug would be a
Okay.
good one. Yeah.
All right. I folded down that page. I had a feeling.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so give me some grace because this is my first time doing this.
Absolutely. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Keisha, reading from Memoirs of a Daughter of Crackhead.
All right, so this is chapter 8, Red Volkswagen Bug. I remember the day my dad came to pick me up in the Mercury Cougar. This was before the drugs. The car, was brand spanking new. It was shiny and midnight blue, and it had that new car smell. Life seemed so good for him without Gail. His demeanor was so different, and in a good way. He was gentler, kinder, and less mean. Not like my dad walked around angry all the time or was mean to me. He was only upset when there was a problem with my grades. On Friday, he came to pick me up from school. I was still in the 4th grade, and I was going to Fruitvale Elementary School. He no longer picked me up from our house because Gail had turned into a money-hungry drama queen. Whenever she saw Dad, Gail had a habit of begging. I'm sure he was giving Gail plenty of money. If only my dad knew how the refrigerator looked. Anyway, I went on to the front of the school, and he picked me up every Friday, but I didn't see his ugly yellow 1970-something Camaro with the turtle in the back window. And he had that car for as long as I can remember. Back when we lived on East 26th Street, my friends and I would use my dad's old Camaro when we pretended to drive. I remember one of my friends, Rashana, and I thought it would be a good idea to use small sticks as keys. We stuck those sticks in the door where the real key would go, and we twisted those sticks as if the door locks were the ignition and pretended we were turning the car on. Once the sticks got stuck, and my dad, who I called Poppy in those days, was so mad at us. Anyway, I didn't see my dad at the school parked in his usual spot, so I assumed he was going to be late. But as I prepared to sit on the grass, I heard someone calling my name, and it was my daddy in his new car. I assumed it was Deb's car, but no, it turns out it was his own shiny new car. How exciting. That said, I always liked the ugly yellow Camaro. I have tons of memories of that thing and the things that happened in that car. It was there that I first heard Knee Deep by Parliament so many times that I knew all the words. It was in that car that my dad burned my lip with a cigarette when I was sitting on the middle hump, leaning forward, and accidentally put my mouth on the flame. Nope, no seatbelts or laws back in those days. But there was something about the smell of a brand new car, similar to a mixture of plastic, Halloween costume, and new clothes. I could no longer drink my grape Hi-C juice box and eat my Tom's hot fries while we rode to wherever we were going. It wasn't long after getting that car that he and Deb got an apartment together on Austin Street. and I was living with them shortly after that. I enjoyed living on Austin Street. It was just as fun as Deering Court. It was much more diverse. Deering Court had lots of kids, and they were all Black like me. But on Austin Street, there were all kinds of kids. There were white, Black, Mexican, Asian, and everything in between. It was a little different for me. We all went to Hawthorne Elementary School and walked to school. I remember times when we would be outside doing the routine to the rap group Houdini's song, One Love, One Love. You're lucky if you have just one love. Everyone, including the white kids, rode our bikes together and went to each other's houses. I was allowed to go places with my friends Patrice and her mom. They lived directly upstairs from us. I remember Patrice's mom, her favorite song was The Object of My Desire by Starpoint. Once in the car, she was singing it so loud that other people in the cars around us could hear her. She had an excellent voice, though. I remember wanting to sing with her. It was a great time to be a kid. Well, it was definitely better than Buddy's house. Life was normal for me for the most part. Other than giving Deb a hard time all the time, we were there for a year or so, and by then, my dad had begun to use crack. In the beginning, I was in denial, and I didn't want to see any of the signs. Even though I knew what to look for, I ignored what was right in front of me. He was my dad. He'd never used drugs, but then came that day when I could no longer disregard the signs. The downfall from abusing crack is devastatingly quick. That drug will make you spend every last dime of your money chasing a high you will never ever see again. The downfall was no different for my daddy. Our lives changed so fast. I never asked him when he started using drugs. I don't know if it was before or after he and Deb got married. What I do know is that it wasn't long after the wedding that shit started to hit the fan. There was one time my friends and I were walking home from school, and when we got to our apartment, I noticed a different car in our parking stall. It was old and ugly, and it was a red Volkswagen Bug. It was in decent shape. It didn't have any dents or anything. The paint was okay, but it was just old. I figured someone was at our house. I always got home before my dad, so it could have belonged to someone visiting someone else in the complex and had just parked in our stall. When I went to use my key to get in the house, I noticed the door was already open. And when I walked in, I knew my dad was home early from work, or maybe he had never even gone to work at all. The house was perfumed and permeated with the funky smell of crack. The smoke from that shit was so thick that the air was cloudy. And when my dad came out of the room looking a gross mess, I knew he'd been home all day. And he was so high, he hadn't even bothered to turn on the fans to hide what he was doing. In his crack high mind, he tried to explain the smoke away. He said the house was so smoky because he was smoking a lot of cigarettes. That made a whole lot of perfect sense to him. How young and stupid did he think I was? More importantly, how in the hell was he going to explain this shit to Deb, who would be home shortly if she was coming back at all? As much as I didn't like her, I didn't want Deb to experience the aftermath of a full day of crack smoking in her house. So I unfastened up the patio door, which opened out to the creek. It was a windy day, so I knew that would help. Still pretending that I didn't realize he was a full-blown dope fiend who was high at that very moment, I, in the nicest possible way, asked my dad to open the window in his room. Their room also faced the creek. I can't even imagine what it smelled like in there, and I wasn't about to go see for myself. If he'd been holed up in that room all day, so much so that the smell made its way into the living room, then that room was likely much worse. And while he was opening the window to his room, I stood in the doorway and I noticed the window was broken. I didn't bother to ask him what happened to it. I was just trying to clear the house out for Deb. After a while, it began to get dark and Deb still wasn't home. She must have been at her mom's, Nanny's house. My dad told me we were leaving to go get something to eat. And as we walked out of the house and into the parking lot, we were walking towards that ugly ass Volkswagen Bug. And there I was standing next to the passenger side of this piece of shit car, waiting for him to get in and unlock the door for me. The Cougar had automatic locks. This car did not. Dad had to open the door for me with the door handle. So he let me in and I sat in that weird clumpy little thing. and there was this long manual stick in the middle of the seats, which was like nothing I had ever seen. And finally, I just asked my daddy whose car we were in, and he said it was his. My young self already knew what the deal was. He had lost the Cougar because that car note was eating into his crack budget. What a shame. I knew that once he started smoking, my life would change, but I didn't think it would happen like this. Things went downhill from there. Actually, things had already been going downhill long before I started to notice. I wondered what Dad was thinking about all of this. I finally realized why he wasn't as concerned with the smell as he usually was. Dad wasn't coming home. In fact, Dad would be gone for several days. So I knew I had several days of fast food meals and crack smoke filled in my house for the future, for the next future. Great. The next day I went to school and my dad left the house as if he was going to work. I remember hoping he made it in that old ugly Volkswagen Bug. And that's that.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny reading it out loud. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember that day and coming home and walking into a house with the door open, but cracked just a little bit, not all the way open, and just the smell. If anybody's ever been around the smell of crack, it's like nauseating. It's the worst smell ever. And so, yeah, it hit me like really when I walked in the door. It was like, even my little 5th grade self knew the deal. It was like, okay, here we go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I can just see this little, I mean, I just have this sense of like, you know, my God, this is a child with like the weight of the world
Mhm.
on her shoulders, and just kids do not miss a thing.
Mm-mm. No, I caught on real quick. I knew, and plus I had already been exposed because my mother became a drug addict before my father did. And so, you know, not to give too much away, my dad actually stepped in when my mother, because they separated and then she became a drug addict, and my dad watched, you know, me kind of suffer a little. And then he took over. And so that's why I was so devastated when he became a drug addict, because you just saved my life. Like, what in the world? Like, you just saved my life. I just got free. So I was already exposed. So when it came to him, I already knew. It was like, been there, done that with her. I see where we're gonna go now with you, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you knew what was going to happen. I mean, it's like you knew more than he did.
Definitely. I think I did at that time because, you know, he'd watched it and he had friends and even my mother, but it's different when you're literally right in the middle of it yourself. It's a completely different thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Trika. Cool. Trika's like another one of our show members, and she'll be coming on. She'll be coming on a little later. I'm glad you're on, Trika. I knew you would enjoy this. So, how has your family responded to the book?
Well, my dad wasn't the most thrilled.
Yeah.
I contacted him first because I don't really have the closest relationship with the other characters in my story. However, my dad, I have a very close bond with. And so I reached out to him, and when he knew about the book. I've been writing it for a few years now, so he knew about it, but he didn't know how close at the time I was to releasing. And so at first he was like, no, you go ahead and write it. I know it was healing, and he didn't even want to know the title. He didn't want to know anything. So when I started to promote the book on my social media, he lost it. Like, oh my God, like, why didn't you tell me? I tried.
Wow.
I tried to warn you. But to answer your question, he's the only one who I felt I had anything to lose.
Yeah.
Because he's the only one who I'm still incredibly close to. I'm not at all close to my mother or my aunt, which are the 3 main players in my story. Oh, and my grandmother. I don't want to give too much away, but because I wrote about it a little at the end, I've tried to mend relationships with all of my family members. I can tell you that is how I discovered that healing occurs in spirals, and it's not linear. It's not like you go from point A to point B. Like, I don't like you over here, and I forgive you and I love you over here, and then everything's happily ever after. It just doesn't work that way. So when I thought I'd forgiven, when I thought I'd let it go, when I thought I was no longer angry, is when I discovered I still was. And that'll be a lot of that will be written in book 2. How I maneuver through still having pain and still, healing trauma. It never goes away. It's always an ongoing thing. It's never done and quit. It's always going to be, something that triggers this, or an incident here, or seeing some other youth that's going through it and remembering my own experiences, and then still trying to have compassion for the other characters in my story while still feeling angry at the same time. It's really, I feel like sometimes I'm in a tug of war where I'm so compassionate and I want to love on them. And then the other half of me is like, I'm still really angry, and I'm honoring all of those parts of me. I think that's the important part. That's what healing is honoring it all. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way to put it. I could tell when you were reading, I could see Roselle getting like more and more drawn into it. Because I've been saying we're going to have somebody really great on the show, but you just can't until you hear it. Have you published excerpts of the book anywhere?
I have. I've published little like short stories. Like before I published the entire book, I would post little short stories here and there, just pull. And then, but even those stories are much different than what actually ended up being published in the actual book. This book is so different. I took a lot of stuff out, added a lot of stuff in. There's stuff that I took out that I plan to use in book 2. But yeah, I played around with it because I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with it at the time that I was writing. I used to tell people all the time, I'm in another group on social media called Intention Inspired, where I would, talk about my book sometimes and say, I don't even know what the purpose of this book is. I remember saying that in 2017, like, who wants to read a book about such trauma? Like, who wants to hear all this negativity? Like, and then somebody told me, you don't know because the story is still being written. That person could have never been more right, because the story was still unfolding. I was still having connections with family members and having, and not having connections with family members. And I wrote about that at the end of the day, and it's in my book. So she was so right in that you never know when the story is going to end. You never know as you're writing. You never know. What I ended up connecting with, like I have a nonprofit called Journey to Wellbeing, and it's to help youth and it's to help cancer patients, because I'm a breast cancer survivor as well. And I felt like my book would connect me to other youth that I was trying to help. It was like my credibility. And that's when I knew why I was writing it. These are the people that are going to want to read the trauma. They're going to want to read the trauma because they're experiencing the trauma. They're going to want to know that somebody else also experienced the trauma. I know for me personally, I didn't want to tell anybody as a kid, so I suffered in silence. I don't think kids should have to do that, but I don't know who I would have wanted to talk to in those days. I would have wanted to talk to somebody who went through it. That's who I wanted to talk to. So I feel like all of my experiences happen so that I can help others who are going through it, even if they're adults and they're just like in my shoes and just afraid to talk about it. That's why I'm here. And that's why the story is written. That was the point of it.
Did you ever come across, so when you were a child and as you've been coming up, did you ever read anything or see a movie or anything where you felt like that could be me?
Believe it or not, have you ever seen the movie Sybil?
Yeah.
I actually wrote about that in my book. I watched that movie over and over and over. And it wasn't that I identified with Sybil's. She had a little background. She had multiple personality disorder. And she was raised by a mother who didn't like her very much. I didn't have the same experiences as she had, but I felt how I connected to her because I feel like I had a mother who did not like me at all. I mean, Sybil's mother used to trip her and make her fall down the stairs and stuff like that, make her wear shoes that were too small on purpose and do terrible things to hurt her. And that's what I connected with. I connected with the fact that I had a mother who even before the drugs didn't like me very much. And so, yeah, I used to watch that all the time, and I connected with that story. And I watched it every day. I used to watch it every single day as a little kid too, 12 years old, every day watching it in a crack house because somebody had sold their Laserdisc player for drugs and it came with Sybil. And I'm like, God, that was a blessing because it was the only thing that I ever had that made me feel like, dang it, I know what that's like to have a mother that would do that, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's, I mean, you know, art or literature, I mean, when you just find something, I mean, it's just one of the purposes to make us not feel alone. And that's, you know, and I think that's one of the things about memoir. I take a lot of writing classes and stuff where it's like, it's personal and it's universal. And it's like with what you can do, it's like when you can write something really personal, but it's bigger, it connects with people. So
yes.
Yeah.
For me, I think that timing was everything. When you turn on the TV, you see shows like Snowfall. And in shows like Snowfall, you hear about how drug dealers, you know, how they got their start. They're selling drugs, they draw their friends in, they see a market. They got a bunch of people, you know, give it to them for free, so they keep coming back. And then you see episode after episode after episode of, you know, people who are sucked in to this very real show. I'm one of them. I actually enjoy the heck out of that show because when I watch it, it reminds me, it's so real that it, you know, it takes me back. Or shows like The Wire.
Yeah.
Or movies like New Jack City.
Yeah.
Or, you know, movies even like Losing Isaiah, where the mom played by Halle Berry is
Oh, did you like that movie? Yeah.
Yeah, played, you know, lost her kid because, but tell me something. How many movies or TV shows have you seen that focuses on the children who survived the era? Can you name one?
No, I can't.
I just feel like the children of the time were completely forgotten.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the reason why my book resonates with so many people, because nobody ever gave us a voice.
Yeah.
You have this drug that took over our community. I mean, took over. Overnight, one minute we had a parent, boom, one minute we didn't. Literally, you wake up in the morning and you're like, where my mom at? It was like that. And nobody ever talks about it. Not even us. Yeah. And I just think that it's time to, you know, we focus, even the crack baby is talked about.
It is, but like
the
in
little
an
kids
objectifying type way. Yeah.
You're right. And I'm just thinking like, wow, like, and then people complain about how, you know, the generation today is carrying on, not even realizing that we are the ones that raised them. And we were little kids out there winging it. Like we were winging it.
Yeah.
As kids. And then we had our own children. And now we're winging it. Like we're doing the best we can out here, you know, trying to take care of our children and raise them. But literally you can turn on the TV and at any given moment, at any given time, and hear the drug dealer story, the drug addict story, you know, but never, ever, ever do we see the children who survived story. I think it has a lot to do with accountability. Like, you know, a lot of people don't want to face that, you know, look what we did, you know, even though nobody had a clue at the time. People thought that crack was going to be like weed and that they were just going to be able to smoke it whenever they wanted to and quit whenever they wanted to. Nobody had an idea at the time or at that time, the impact it would have on the community. And now, you know, you have us and we're just like, you know, holding on to trauma, trying to protect everybody and still trying to heal ourselves. And our story is just kind of like swept under the rug. I hate that so much. That's why my book is so important, and that's why it resonates.
It sure is. Would you read another chapter for us? $20?
Sure,
Okay.
I would.
Okay.
Which one?
$20. I went.
That's my favorite story, by the way.
Pardon?
That's
Oh,
my
is it?
favorite
Oh, good.
story, by the way.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I went.
It's my
through it.
favorite story because it's funny.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. All right. $20. It's chapter 11. Okay. I was stuck in that house, no food and no mother, no money, and no option to get any that I wanted to use as solutions. I had cable at least. Sobe, it was my favorite. It was the local cable music video channel at the time. I loved the silly commercials that would come on. They looked as if they were filmed on these cheap cameras by someone without a steady hand. The people in the commercials all sounded as if they were reading from cue cards. Anyway, the sun was going down and I was facing another night with no food. Then came the knock at the window. There were not a lot of people who came by that day. I hated getting up to go to the window to do Buddy's dirty work. What do you need? I would say. The customer would then tell me which pill or item they wanted. And then I would go to Buddy's room and let him know what it was that the customer wanted. And sometimes I'd be told to return to the window and tell the customer he didn't have what they needed. But in most cases, he did have what they needed, but for whatever reason, he didn't want to sell to that particular person. But if he did want to sell his goods to the customer, he'd tell me how much money to collect. I would then take him the cash, and then he would give me the items to relate to the person. All of this was done through the window. Me, a child drug dealer. Gail used to take Black Beauties. Black Beauties were amphetamines, uppers. They were black capsules filled with white powder. My mom would open the capsules and pour the white powder into her mouth. Then she would refill the capsules with flour from the kitchen and then have me sell them to the people who came to the window requesting that particular drug. The pills were counted before she left, and any money that was made from them would be held onto until she returned. Never mind the fact that if Buddy found out, I would have been on the streets. Never mind that if a junkie buying them found out, I could have lost my life. Never mind that I hadn't seen a decent meal in weeks. I could have used that money. Still, I always wonder why a grown adult would want to tell such a young child their drug choices. Black Beauties and Valiums, or V's, as some would call them, codeine number 3s or number 4s, syringes, but no heroin, just the needles. Buddy would keep his pills in these tall, wide plastic bottles, which he then stored in large Ziploc bags. Anyone in the house with him knew his system of action to be taken should the police show up or if there was a raid. He dug a hole in the ground in the backyard to which the person home with him was supposed to take the drugs and bury them. You could tell by looking at the Ziploc bags and the bottles that they'd been buried in the ground a few times. They were kind of dingy and dirty, and not because of the usual wear and tear. On this day, the person at the window was not just a customer, it was my daddy. I was so happy to see him in the window, but I had to tell Buddy who was there before I could let him in. I'm sure he wasn't there to see me. I suspect he needed pills of some sort. My dad was a Valium user. I only knew this because once when he came to pick me up before things got really bad, my mom yelled out of the door down the stairs, "You need any V's?" Well, on this day, it didn't matter to me. At the time, I was simply happy to see him. And if he knew how hungry I was, he'd buy me food. First, he went back and talked to Buddy a bit without me. Buddy didn't sell crack, so I knew my dad wasn't looking for that high. I wonder if he'd known what Buddy was doing to me, if he still have wanted to spend his money there. I wondered if deep down he did know, or if maybe Gail had told him and they were too busy with their own shit to care enough to do anything about it. Nope, my daddy couldn't have known. He was on the ultimate pedestal with me, and I refused to believe that even with his full-blown drug habit, that he would have allowed it if he'd known what was happening. No way, no how. Well, my dad came out of Buddy's room, and he looked god awful as if he hadn't slept in forever. But then by now, I was used to seeing him look like that. I will say my daddy never let me see him get high, unlike Gail, but it was so very obvious. Yet I still like to pretend I didn't know. I believe he knew I was aware, but we both played this game. It was still important to me that he knew that to me, he was perfect. Anyway, he didn't have time to take me to get something to eat this day. I was a little sad, but was okay after he handed me a $20 bill. Do you know how long a $20 bill would last me? I could eat for a month. And with that, he kissed me on my forehead and said he would see me next time. Who knew when that would be? I missed my old life. I missed normalcy. I missed not always having to feel as if I had to watch my back. I missed being able to go outside and ride my bike and play with kids my age. And even though I hated school, I also hated not being able to go to school all the time. I was just roaming around, lost, and wishing I had a regular life. About 2 or 3 hours later, Gail came strolling in. I was never happy to see her at this point. I knew enough not to tell her about my $20. I kept it in my pocket, safe and sound. I can't even remember if I talked to her at all while she was home. The only thing I remember is falling asleep. I purposely slept on my belly because my money was in my front pocket. And I slept lightly because I never really knew when some drama was going to pop off in that house. I woke up in the morning feeling happy, mostly because Gail was gone. And I knew I could go to the store to get myself some food because it had been too dark for me to go the night before. I got up to use the bathroom and check my pocket for my money, and it was gone. My heart dropped. I looked under every blanket and double checked every pocket. I was sweating. And after a few minutes, I realized the money was gone. Gail. I cried and cried and cried. I was so heartbroken. Several hours later, Gail came home and I asked her point blank if she took the money. Gail admitted she had. She said my daddy had told her to. I didn't believe it. I refused to believe it. In fact, up to this very point, I didn't believe it. For years, I'd blamed Gail for taking my money and leaving me hungry. And it was always a big deal to me, even though it was just $20. I called my mama a liar. I told her that my daddy would never tell her to take my money from me. And that was the issue that most of my family had on my mom's side. My daddy was always on a pedestal. He was the most perfect person on the planet, and there was no one in the world who was better than him or who loved me more. He spent my quote unquote BC before crack childhood protecting me and caring for me when Gail would not and did not. Gail and I never had a real mother-daughter relationship. So it was really easy for my mom to do the things that she did and allow the things that she allowed because she didn't like me anyway. But my dad loved me more than anyone. And even though I was afraid of him and would never disrespect him, I felt his love and never questioned it the way I questioned Gail's. My existence is part of why he didn't have a good relationship with Gail after I was born. I believe it is because Gail didn't feel he could love us both. My mom was incredibly young when I was born, and my dad always protected and took good care of me. He loved me. That's why I never believed my dad would ever tell my mom to take money from me. But even though he loved me, even though he really wanted me to have that money, even though he was concerned about my well-being, the poison had him. The poison had won. How on earth would Gail even know I had $20 in my pocket to take unless my dad told her? Because I didn't tell her. I was very hurt and I blamed her for years. There weren't a lot of things that bothered Gail, and I brought it up several times over the years about how she stole my money, and she denied it every time. But now I believe my dad had told Gail to take the money. I think the two of them were likely together, and the reason my dad was even at Buddy's that day was to get pills, but not for himself. He was there for pills for Gail. I'll never know for certain. I still don't blame him as much as I blamed my mom at the time. It's for the same reason I never cut her any slack for doing the same shit he did. No, I always kept my dad on a high pedestal. I never blamed him for anything that happened. I laid all of the blame for everything evil on my mother's shoulders. The reason? I don't know. Either way, the $20 was gone. there you have it.
It's awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
love
Yeah. Keisha, this is Spider, another
Hi,
member of
Spider.
the podcast
Hey,
family.
nice to meet you.
Wow.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That
okay.
story is the story that I wrote that made me get up from the table and cry, because that day was the day that I realized how culpable my father was and how I wasn't necessarily holding him responsible for his role in what was happening to me as a kid, because I love my daddy so much. He's my hero still.
Yeah.
But that day was the day that I realized, like, oh my God, like he's just as bad as her. Like, that was a tough story to write. And I remember, like, I got up from my desk that day and I just was like in tears. I just sat there in my kitchen and cried and cried. Yeah.
So, real quick, because you went to you were talking about crack and its impact on the on the streets.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of Gary Webb? The reporter Gary Webb?
San Jose Mercury News, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I do know who Gary Webb is. I know that he wrote the article detailing the CIA's role and how crack was released into our communities, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
I know all about him, or I know enough about him to know that, you know, crack just didn't show up in the Black community.
I just find it real interesting when we say outsider comes in and exposes such a big thing, right? And he's trying to get everybody to hear it. And he's like, why aren't you guys biting? You know, it's one thing when we say it, but it's like, I think it was just so phenomenal that he came out and he did that. And he went to Montel and he had Maxine Waters involved and the lady in LA, I can't remember her name, but they had like a whole thing in Carson, a whole town hall meeting and everything about it, bought in the CIA. And then I watched the meeting. I don't know if you've seen this meeting. It's a very incredible meeting. I implore everybody to watch it because a former CIA guy gets up there and spills the beans.
He spilled the beans.
He spilled the beans. And
you know something? He got shot in the head twice and got in the back of the head at that. Yeah. And it was declared suicide.
Suicide. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, they took him out.
There's so many little things that we are, I guess, we're victims too. And that's why I don't like the whole thing of playing the victim. Like, we're not really playing a victim role.
I want to get back to the book, to the story.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying about the book. Like, when people read your story, right? They don't, I guess they don't really realize the depth of what it means to be victimized by the system. When people
who's that? Okay, I want to get back to specifics, kind of, because this is like about the personal thing and like where the book's going to be getting out to, and we're about to take a break too.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I'm way out there with my thoughts.
Yeah, and it's kind of I don't really believe in these that much. But I mean, so far as like getting it out there, I know we're talking about doing a book. Do you have the distribution, Keisha? I'm not sure how that part works, because if we do something at a bookstore, then because we could do something where you you read from it and then you like sit there with a pile of books and people buy books and you sign them.
Right. Yeah, I've gone to a couple of book signings from my favorite authors. Most recently, right before COVID, I went to a book signing and a speaking through Sylvester McNutt. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's a poetry and author, and I absolutely adore him. Flew all the way to LA just to go to one of his book signings. But absolutely, I'm totally down. And when it comes to distribution, I order books in bulk and I sell them on my website signed. That's how I sell the signed ones. If you go to journeytowellbeing.org, if you order it from there, I'll send it to you signed, but I order them in droves and stacks of them. And then, I always have plenty of quantity on hand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Everybody, journeytowellbeing.org, and you get a signed copy like I did. Yeah, that's the piece because I don't know how that, because if you sell something at a bookstore, I'm not sure how that would work yet, but I mean, there's bookshops here that would really want to support you. Okay, because I didn't even get to that. Who are some of the authors that you like or that have inspired you?
So my favorite author in the whole world is Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. I probably wouldn't even be able to sit here and have this conversation without the teachings of Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. I love Matt Kahn. He's one of my other favorites. I read a lot of spiritual books. So I love Eckhart Tolle. Sylvester McNutt, he writes poetry, but it's so modern, and it's not grandma's poetry, for lack of better verbiage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also he's pretty motivational. So I love his work. Those are some of my favorites. Some of my favorite books that people that I buy books from. I love Till Swan's books too. And I just read a lot of spiritual books in nature. I don't read a lot of fiction, but the one fiction book that I'm happy to shout out is called Supermarket, written by one of my favorite rappers, Logic. And so, like that's one of my favorite books. And from him is where I got my idea about the playlist, because he created a whole soundtrack for his book. And I was like, oh my God, that's the dopest thing ever. Yeah. So when you're listening to his book or reading his book, you listen to the music. It's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So for everybody that might have just came on, there's a Spotify playlist for Memoirs from a Daughter of Crackheads. And is it it's under the name of the book, right?
It is. If you search it, you'll see the book cover.
Who did the illustration?
And like if you search Memoirs from a Daughter of Crackheads, yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's like my favorite. He did such a great job. His name is Carrick Adams. Okay. And I reached out to him literally in the middle of COVID. And in the middle of the riots, the Black Lives Matter riots, because of George Floyd and all of the people who had passed away, and Breonna Taylor. And I joined a Black forum, and he posted some of his work. So I reached out to him and told him my vision. I said, listen, here's what I want. I've been telling all kinds of people this vision. Even my sister, before I started writing the book, I was like, I know what I want my cover to look like. This guy brought my book to life.
He did.
That little girl is me.
Cool. Okay, look, guys, there it is. Cool.
That little girl in there.
Yeah.
She is me. Like, that's her story. I remember I saw it. I like shed a tear the first time when he sent me just the art, his sketch. Honestly, I thought the sketch was it. He sent it to me. He goes, what do you think? I'm like, oh my God, it's me. I just told him to change her hair a little bit, make it look like how mine did when I was a little girl, and he did. And the final product was like, oh my God, like it was so breathtakingly perfect. I don't know what he's gonna do for book 2. I'm kind of excited.
Yeah. Well,
Carrick Adams, and he's fantastic. Carrick Adams.
Wow.
Cool. You have all 5 stars on Amazon, by the way. This is a very good book.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I gotta go to Amazon.
Yeah, you don't have no bad. Yeah, this is an excellent read. So
cool.
I've been trying to tell people, if you've read my book, please review it.
I did. I'll go see if I did. Yeah. But okay, people, and you can order it through. Wait a minute, I just wrote it down someplace. Brazil, can you put it in the chat?
You can get it anywhere that books are sold. Really,
I googled it. I just googled it. It came up on Amazon.
Yeah, but buy it anywhere you can. But to buy it independently, you can go to Journey to Wellbeing, and then you get it directly. Yeah. So people
and then
can
you get it from me, and I also will sign it. You'll also get a cute little bag with it too.
Oh, tight. I mean,
yeah.
What was that website?
Yeah.
What's the website?
Journey to Wellbeing. JourneyToWellbeing.org. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we got Trika My other friend will be on soon. Fire, so real. And then our friend Shantae was listening from work. So there's a lot of people that are going to be very moved by this. So I think we're about to take a break and then move on to some news stuff. So do you have any more shout outs you want to give, Keisha, or events you're doing?
I actually just want to shout out to you. I want to just say thank you for having me and the rest of your team too, and anybody who's watching. I just want to say thank you. And I don't want to shout out any upcoming events just yet at this time, but if you follow Memoirs from a Daughter of Crackheads on both Instagram and Facebook, you will definitely see all of the upcoming events that I have. I do have a book signing in LA in about a month from today, on the 27th of July. So I'm really excited about that. I'll post the details there. And it's at a cute little new bookstore that's just opening. And I'm so excited for it. It's a Black-owned bookstore and it's right in the middle of Inglewood. I'm really excited. So anyway, I'll post all of my details about that.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah, see, the Ethnic Notions is a Black-owned bookstore and galleries, like just right here downtown Vallejo. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's where I really like to do the event. She has an incredible collection of books and art, and there's a room to hold events.
Oh, wow. I'd love to talk to you more about that.
We will.
Absolutely. And thank you so much.
This was awesome. And okay, so Roselle, you gonna play some music?
Yep, let's get it.
Okay, Global Hits. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Michelle, for listening, and we will be back shortly.
dumb rich for myself, fuck a bitch. Raised in the gutter, I was high, not the trick. I kick game and isn't it so slick? It's a blessing that I even exist. Trying to manifest my dreams of revenue streams. Lessons with the sun rubbed down to feel the breeze. Ratchet bitches in the bottle with Hennessy. I pop my collar, I know that they feeling me. I'm connected, oh, maybe the enemy, legendary. Speak on me for the centuries. I keep it playing, I guess it's a Cali thing, authentic. Not a script on your TV screen. See me with 40 midgets up in the limousine. Put your mind to it, you can do anything. Put your mind to it, you can do anything. Another day, another dollar, I'm trying to get Benjamins, I ain't living like this. Another day, another dollar, I'm trying to get filthy rich, up and talking my shit.
So many poor people living in suppression. Funny how the rich always dying from depression. Life is a cold ass investment. Can't make it off your gifts, then you really not living in the present. In my darkest, I doubt it. Judgment was clouded. Rapping not reciprocal. Expectation minimal. Never been a silly hoe. Santa only gave me cold pressure. Under fire, made diamonds, baby, from my soul. I could overgrind, put in time, to show you that I shine. The world gon' let me roll on by. I know I'm divine. Pray for peace of mind. Living like it's quitting time. Walk the straight line. Your path, not mine. You don't want it like I want the whole pie. I take it like that took us side to side. I control self, and my self-control high. You don't want it like I want the whole pie. You don't want it like I want it like
So let's go. Pedal to the floor. All gas, no brakes. I ain't trying to stop no more. Man, I'm rapping with the flow. Jack Nabbit, let's go. I'm trying to make the shit jump from the bottom to the top, from the head to the toe. Man, I'm rapping with the flow. Jack Nabbit, let's go. I'm trying to make the shit jump from the bottom to the top, from the head to the toe.
You know it's nothing to shrug it off, spit it right. I'm not here fucking off, money abroad, loving life. And I cop a lot, no need to quarantine. The coast checking, rhyme wrecking, 2020 war machine. I'm careless, I'm spilling blues everywhere that I can to keep my fans enthused. I cruise in controls, I'm in lane, hella held up. Peace out to my mans, what the hell's up? I'm fearless, I'm feeling juice, doing everything I can to keep my fans in tune. You seen the moonlight infinite, when I stand it freeze up, that means you got to go and meet y'all too.
See, the thing is, you just can't think about it. You just gotta let go and trust in yourself. Cause you're good. Here we go now. 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 So let's go. All you gotta do is jump. Don't be scared, just jump. Ready, set, jump, jump. Yeah, jump, jump. All you gotta do is jump. Yeah, take a leap and trust that you'll land on your feet. All you gotta do is jump. Tell them snakes goodbye. I'ma teach you how to fly. All you gotta do is jump. Skydiving in a hurricane. Left my parachute like I never heard of pain. Hit my bullseye with perfect aim. Now I'm killing them softly like when Roberta sang. Yeah, you can do the same. You can choose the fame, but don't confuse the game. You can paint a picture, then you can choose the frame. You can leave your mark. Can they remove the stain? Don't worry about them other guys. Otherwise, you'll scare away the butterflies. Yeah, the only thing on your mind should be the look in your mother's eyes if your brother dies. Yeah, so throw caution to the wind. If you can't, then you're your own obstacle again. If you don't hold your breath, is it possible to swim? It's all psychological, my friend. All you gotta do is jump. Don't be scared, just jump. Ready, set, jump, jump. Yeah, jump, jump. All you gotta do is jump. Yeah, take a leap and trust that you'll land on your feet. All you gotta do is jump. Tell them snakes goodbye. I'm gone. I'ma teach you how to fly. All you gotta do is jump.
What's up? What's up? Anna, where you at? You in the building?
I'm right here. Yeah. Yeah. What's up, everybody? Okay, I was just checking on the mayoral race in New York City. This guy that's like a former cop is winning, but fortunately that little prick Andrew Yang conceded. I hate people like him.
What do you do? Wait, what's your beef with Andrew?
I like, because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I don't like people that are all talk. But hey, Trika. Yeah. Okay, this is about, before we get to the Juneteenth breakdown, I want to tell everybody what the fuck, man? I want to tell everybody what the what my background is on. Check this out. Anybody know what this? Can you tell what this is? Okay.
No.
Okay, so one of the things we've been following is the schools for so-called schools, kidnapping facilities for children, for Indigenous children in Canada. And what has happened recently was a mass graves have been discovered. So the government basically kidnapped these children, put them in abusive schools, and they just died there. So one of the things I was following on Twitter was somebody was saying unmarked grave, and a Indigenous scholar was pointing out that, like, hey, an unmarked grave can still mean that somebody got a proper burial, but a mass grave means something very
totally different.
Yes.
Totally different.
Yeah, and it means different. So what they're trying to do right now is figure out some ways to deal with it. There was a start live. So, and the aside to that is that today the Secretary of the Interior here in the US announced that they are who's Native American, that they are going to start investigating those schools here. At one point in the 1920s, 80% of Native American children were in these schools. But okay, so this picture behind me is, okay, we talked about the statue of a Canadian guy named Egerton Ryerson, and he was toppled and like spray painted and stuff. He's the guy that came up with the concept of these Canadian schools. So that's good. He should be knocked down. And then the other thing I was just reading is that police in Canada say they're treating fires that destroyed 2 Catholic churches on Indigenous community land in British Columbia as suspicious. So when I first saw it, because here in the US, when you hear like churches being born, you think it's being burned, you think it's the white supremacists, but I was like, okay, the government was contracting with the Catholic Church to do these schools. So, I'm not necessarily the hugest fan of burning down churches, but I was like, fuck, man, if the Indigenous Canadians are expressing themselves that way, I am all for it, man. That is not so.
It can literally go both ways. I can see both sides, because religion is something that has oppressed our people more than it's helped. I mean, it helps with the faith, but it hurts with the, just don't do anything, sit back and wait for God to save you.
Yeah.
And a lot of these religious establishments are not looking out for the people that are following them. They're looking out for themselves, and it's a business.
Yeah.
And when it becomes a business, it's no longer spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like nothing spiritual about taking people's children.
Nope. And don't tell me, oh, if you give me your children, God will love you more. That's crazy.
They went in and took them, you know.
Oh yeah, they didn't
Yeah.
tell nobody nothing.
Yeah.
Actually,
And you know what, Anna? I kind of feel like there's gonna be a lot of more of these exposures coming up within the next year or so, because it's a big thing that's been hidden, but it's big money behind it.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of too many people are starting to wake up to like this. Why are our children coming up missing? The babies should be protected.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and because it's like it's not going to be an anomaly. If they did this at one facility, it's going to be at other facilities too.
They don't keep pushing.
Yeah.
Just like a drug addict. Like you get it and you want to go get more, you want to get more and more and more and more, because you'll never get that first high.
Yeah.
But you can keep on going for it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm mad I didn't get to jump on here when Keisha was on here, because I was watching and that hit me on so many levels.
Yeah.
And no, I didn't have crackhead parents, but it's just that mentality, or, you know, the way that it's the way that people present themselves. It's not about the drug, it's about the behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it's-
I could relate.
Yeah, I hope you get the book. And I mean, because it's just so deep. There's just,
I think that.
Huh?
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I think that's where my whole thing about being a victim was. What I was saying is that she is not a victim, or she is a victim. She's not playing a victim. There's no playing of the victim. That connotation, that usage of that term being thrown around so much today is so disdain, because it defranchises what she just read to us. It says
because she was truly a victim.
Yes,
and the people that throw around the victimized stuff, they're not victims. Like, you put yourself in that situation. Take responsibility for your own actions.
No. But what I'm saying is, people
not with Keisha. When it comes to kids, we don't have no choice.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're not playing. It's a real thing for them. It's a real. And that's what I think people need to. I don't think people really realize or empathize with other people anymore. And I'm so glad she was there to read that, because I hope your listeners.
I listened to all of it.
Exactly.
That didn't empathize before and go, oh, I empathize and I was blown back, you know?
Okay, so with that being said, like, my cousin wrote this book, Beyond the Crack Generation, right?
Oh, wow.
Cool.
And I've been reading it, but I haven't been reading like I should be reading it. But listen to her story, I was like, you know what? My cousin wrote a book about growing up in the crack era. That's how close it is to me, even though it wasn't me. Yeah. That's still how close it was. So just to understand it, it's deep. And you don't realize the toll that's going on with the children. Nobody thinks about the kids that survived. That was the one thing she said that I was like, man, they don't think about the kids that survive all that shit. Yeah. You got to be a strong ass motherfucker.
And most kids get to grow up. They don't just get to survive.
As you hear sirens going off in my background.
It's all good. No, I said most kids just get to grow up. They don't get to survive growing up. I
never got to be a kid. I wasn't a kid. I remember being a kid. I remember being a responsible person.
Yeah. So there was no survival factor. You were just living, right? That TV is a big point. Yeah,
I don't know what's going down. It's only Taco Tuesday. But somebody ran out of carne asada, you know, it gets down in San Diego.
You're in Diego. So what's up with that story where the high school kids got taco shells thrown at them? What was up with that? That went down in your area. Like some high school.
Your area apparently too, since you always want to claim you from San Diego. What happened in your area? That wasn't over here where I'm in the hood. They eating them taco shells.
We
No,
gotta
but
get,
you-
okay, we gotta, hey, Lawrence, I got a plan here. We
Sure.
gotta
Oh,
get
my bad.
to,
Stick to it.
yeah, I mean,
Go ahead,
because
go
like,
ahead.
we have that, I mean, I got stuff to cover, but
know.
particularly, I especially wanted to have Trika on tonight because last week, or was it the week before, I was listening to your discussion about Juneteenth, which, was a very.
It got kind of deep.
Yeah.
It
sure did.
didn't
Yeah.
go like I thought it was gonna go.
Yeah.
It went the way it was supposed to go.
Exactly. So I was listening to that. And then this past week, it was like federal, the whole holiday thing. And I'd
And,
actually
but
come on
Anna, did
before
you
that, but I was like,
how
yeah,
much
okay.
stuff happened this week? And it was
Yeah.
like crazy across the United States because there were so many people that were upset that this is now a national holiday. Like, it don't pay you, don't never mind. You don't have to celebrate it, but I bet you enjoy that extra day off that week.
So do you want to fill our listeners in? Because I know the story kind of started with you like being asked to like talk about it. Do you want to fill our listeners in on like the background?
I will. I work for a company and we, the minority, are Blacks. So I was kind of taken aback that they even reached out to me to want to speak on it. And especially they wanted me to speak it on their Instagram for our new products that we're launching. So it's kind of like, oh, y'all putting your necks out there. Like, Trika might not say everything you want me to say. But I think it went really well. And it was only supposed to be like a 30-minute interview. We did Zoom like we're doing right now. I ended up being on the phone with them for like an hour and a half. And they were just like, wow, we just don't know. And the fact that they were taking that back about what I was saying, I was like, well, I don't even know that much about Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Like, I just learned about Juneteenth within the last 10 years. And that was some of my own doing. It wasn't something that someone taught me. It wasn't something that was passed on from my elders to me or my older siblings or anything. Like, it's not a celebration that we used to have. They celebrate 4th of July all the time. Never knew about Juneteenth.
I think we know Juneteenth. We just didn't celebrate it. Like, we all know when the emancipation of slavery occurred. Like, that's a known school thing.
Shitty education.
It's not a known thing. And I think there's a lot of people who don't know that. And I think that was
we know that we were emancipated as slaves. We know that at one point.
We knew that, but you didn't know about Juneteenth because Juneteenth was them being realized that they were free years after being free. So
that was
for
Texas.
free.
That was like Texas and Texas
But
being
it wasn't just Texas, but Texas was the only state that was documented as doing so.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that people also have to take in too. And I don't want to argue about why we didn't know, when we didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, leave that back there. Like, we know now. So let's learn from it. Let's progress. And let's move it forward and recognize everything. Like, Black people have more victories and celebrations than we are ever been taught in school or in our own lives. Our own families don't even know these victories. And I felt like that's what made Juneteenth so much more important to me this year, because I was like, I'm fully embodied in this. And I'm going to go around the people that celebrate my Blackness. Not to say that I don't love everybody else, but hey, this is my day. And I'm going to celebrate it and enjoy it the way that I'm supposed to. And other people that, even if you're not of African-American race, you can celebrate it too, because we have contributed so much to the society that doesn't get recognized. And I think this is one of the first steps to that starting to be something that happens more often.
Yeah. And reflecting reflecting more of the accuracy of history. Like, okay, this happened. Okay.
It's not something that was made up. Yeah. We didn't make it up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that actually happened, and we have documentary of this. And outside of that, it's like just to think that how could you as a human being want to keep someone enslaved for years after you know they're not supposed to be your slave? Like that's the thing that gets me. It's like that's the inhumanity in it all. But at the same time, I don't want to dwell on it. I want to learn and progress, because when you know better, you do better. So as long as we get enough people knowing it, then they're going to have to do better, because you can't sit well when you know the truth and do something wrong. I don't know about you, but I know when I do something wrong and I know I could have did, I don't sleep at night.
I think you're right. I think knowing all of the history is important. I know for me, like that allowed for me to sort of have a open eye as to the historic parts. Like everybody, there's parts where you can see where it changed. There's parts where you can see where we were beating the system. You could see where the system beat us. But like we have to find a starting point. We always start in the middle of slavery, and that's like the worst place to start. We really need to kind of backtrack and go to like, well, 16,
we gotta start from we gotta go back and start from when we were royalty, when we were kings and queens in Africa, when they took us from the gold and all the luxury that we had.
That would be like a two-parter.
It wasn't about fancy rings and stuff. We had luxury within our culture. But when you displace people from their culture and you distract them, or you make it impossible for them to reconnect to that takes more from anything. That's way more rich than gold. I don't know anything about African culture.
Yeah. And we also need to understand the regional area and understand the Africa is right next to Spain. We always jump to Europe and look at the UK.
No, they all took advantage. Every one of them.
Portugal and Spain that were pretty much set the whole shape up for what we have. And that's what I'm saying. When we have slavery, we always go in the middle and understanding the whole thing.
I don't think we always do. I think certain people do.
Wait,
I never do. I look at the whole country as a whole, because every culture has some type of African influence in it. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you say. I live next to the border. If you go to certain parts of San Diego or Mexico, it still has an African culture embodied in it. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that we had influence everywhere, but we just never had a voice. Or we never wanted to take the place of the voice. Because you know what? When you start to talk out too loud, something happens to you.
Because we never know what happened. No one knows. Like, you know, I'm sure in South America, those people in that region have a different way of analyzing their history. So I would say like the blacks in Brazil. They probably know, like, you know, they have a different history than we could in America. And I'm sure that they have a different remembrance of it. And they probably have more memory of it because it's Brazil than how in America we keep it kind of hidden. You feel me?
Well, you know, in Mexico, they celebrate Juneteenth. There's some cities in Mexico that actually celebrate Juneteenth. They've been celebrating Juneteenth before we were. And they call the Day of the Blacks.
Yeah, it's more open and in the air.
It's not on a malicious tip.
Yeah,
it's them recognizing that there were days where Black slaves actually went to Mexico. They had to go south of the border, across borders to be free. And I think that Juneteenth is like, that was the day, like, look, we're not doing this no more. Even though I feel like it's not a real full celebration, because we're still not free. They still find ways to still entrap us and still treat us like we're still slaves, but they just don't have the paperwork on us. They don't own us like that. So
it won't be a real holiday until we get a market behind it. That's the only way that you make a holiday.
No, it won't be a holiday until everybody is about it.
Well, that's when it becomes
Black, Mexican, everybody. Even Black people need to be behind it too.
Yes, because it'll be in the stores. It'll be like Juneteenth celebrations. Come get your plates. Come get your whatever it is you would do to celebrate that day. Like
Everybody got music
every
about
holiday.
it, like they all about
Irish-
St. Patrick's Day and 4th of July
Yeah,
and
there's always a theme
Thanksgiving.
behind
It's a national holiday.
But there's a theme behind it. What do you do on St. Patrick's Day? You wear green so nobody pinches you, right? You drink green beer. It's like this cliche thing that the marketing does to allow for the holiday to present itself as a legit thing. Memorial Day is a sad holiday, and yet we find a way to like.
But that's probably why a lot of people are starting not to celebrate those type of holidays anymore, because they're starting to realize that they are phony, or they're starting to realize the reason behind them is not all the way good. So, I mean, I stopped celebrating Thanksgiving a few years back.
Okay, we're about to take another break, you guys. Then I'm going back to my news.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We thought we were doing Juneteenth. My bad. Awesome.
We were, but
all right, for sure. What is that? A Christmas tree back there?
What?
Behind you? It looks like a Christmas tree.
No.
Let's go with this.
It's my vision.
This is his vision. You know he can't see, right?
Yeah, I'm imagining. I thought that was look like a tree.
Oh, gosh. Oh. You want me to talk about Juneteenth, but you don't want me to talk about Juneteenth. Okay. Makes sense. White people shit.
We gonna always be like you with these spin like a pyramid scheme. I ain't been building my team. We been chasing a dream. I be planning it out. We be calling the shots. This ain't checking to me. You ain't checking this queen. We ain't come from a lot, but we all that we got. You got ice in your veins, my flow making it hot. They been looking for change, put the dollar in the slot. Then I'ma give the people exactly what the fuck they want. It's right now, they don't know exactly what the fuck they got. If you not down with my thing, then you just can't be on a stick. I said if you not down with my click, then you just can't be on a stick.
Shit that I ain't been through. Still got open wounds that I ain't tend to. I was out there getting it on my lonely. Niggas still act like my homie. I was getting drip for all my oldies. See me with the pack, they hated on me. I was out there getting it on my solo, like Dolo. Push me white pretenders like a cholo, like Holo. I'm young and just a baby, so my name so people won't forget it. It's slowly where I live, I got to go away from my petition. I'm eating no front over crazy fingers outside changes chicken. So the pussy niggas I'm like open wash. Never been around. Nigga, I stay in the yo. Nigga, you stay in your feelings. Nigga, I stay on the go. Nigga, you was never real. I should've motherfucking known. Nigga, I just lit the fire. Colors came out on their own. I ain't never got to work. Me and Cuzzo stay on go. Niggas talk a lot of shit. Folks who ain't outside no more. I just see where I grew up and look exactly as before. I ain't changed, I just grew up. Oh, I'm exactly as before. Damn, why we can't just get along? Why we gotta trip? You know I've been in some phone. Yeah, I can't always have the phone with me. Head on the swivel, cause that's how I make it home. Damn, ain't a lot of shit that I ain't been through. Still got open wounds that I ain't tend to. I was out there getting it on my lonely. Pussy niggas still act like my homie.
Real. Hey, shit. Right here, bro. Real shit, my nigga. That real shit, nigga. Good as fuck, nigga. Hey, hit this shit, nigga. My uncle got locked in 97, came home in 2011. Most of my loved ones is ex-felons. My nigga split up on me, bro, we was getting high. He said he slipped, he may have to sit down and do some time. But that's the loved one, so I told him if you need anything, just holler. And I'ma hold you down, you'll see it's gonna be alright. That's just solid, I'm following the rules to the game. Plus if it was me, I know my nigga would do the same. Still bumping with a few cats from my block that might need gunshots. Cause real niggas don't call the cops. adhere to the rules of which I was raised by. Get money, never switch up and stay fly. Until you dress cold, nigga, your mind stay. Never fictional what I spit, plus I rhyme great. Don't fuck with fairy tales that niggas make up. Roll top shelf shit, don't twist, don't shake up. Nigga, yeah. I don't expect no sucking niggas to feel less. No. Why? Cause only real niggas gon' feel some real shit. Yeah. I don't expect no sucking niggas to feel less. No. Why? Cause only real niggas gon' feel some real shit.
It's that classic shit. Not that plastic shit. It's that classic shit. Not that plastic shit. It's that classics. It's the classics. What you on the West Coast classic shit? I'm from the early 90s with a record deal, dope sales. Hell yeah, we really did it. All nighters getting money, kept the heater close. Built clip face and printed on the brick of dope. Just a young nigga striving for the better things. Born a bricks, but I raised myself to be a king. Raised by the dope fiends, hustlers and the killers too. Didn't get high, did what hustlers and killers do. Been through hard times, only made a nigga stronger. Paper chasing life, fame never been a luxury. This is dedicated to the niggas that don't fuck with me. This is dedicated to the niggas really fuck with me. God bless, hope you niggas see the lack of luxury. It's actually a dream if you thinking you can fuck with me. God bless, hope the niggas see the lack of luxury. It's actually a dream if you thinking you can fuck with me.
Hey, Anna, this is whoa. You back? We back? You still there, Anna? Or you bounce? Anna. I guess she done bounced.
I don't think so. Here.
Just turn your back on haters, keep your aim accurate. Fuck making good music, let's get back to making hits. Fuck views, record sales, tell the real story. I keep a solid wallet, you never got a feel for me. They tell a bunch of lies, niggas ain't having shit. Swear they hit the gas but don't know what savage is. You niggas groupie ass bitches, blue chain chasers. I'm T the lunatic, a true game lacer. Been a while, took a break, gave them suckers space. They hella Instagram, niggas say it in my face. Computer gangsters, ain't no love for you cocksuckers. Ain't nothing changed on my end, still a Glock clutcher. Don't claim the block, claim the whole fucking city though. Your life's a lie, my life's the dopest fucking video. It's dedicated to you guys like to write them lies. You ain't no felon, ain't even got no criminal ties. It's dedicated to you fools that will bust a break. Claim the town, but you motherfuckers in the way. It's dedicated to you niggas that'll infiltrate. Catch you slipping, watch them hollow tips penetrate. It's dedicated to the boys, keep it real, nigga. Let 100 rounds go, something you can feel, nigga.
Yeah. So when this shit kick in, I guess. Yeah. Merrily, life is but a dream. I'm seeing niggas lose their life because they was hustling for the cream. Mom's crying at the weight came. Bring his seat back, strap and put him on his back. And it was probably over stacks. Lots of still kids having kids out here. Some kids alone, both parents doing bids out here. I'm in my zone, killing field, with my hand on my nine. If they catch your ass slipping, you don't get another try. Keep a bullet in the chamber. If it's funk, then it fly, guy. I'ma get you suckers dependency, never mind ties. Assalamu alaikum, locking down the block with a chop. Let me talk to Samson, I just tell him I'm Jamaican. Half baked, thinking of all the bread I be making. In this game, if it wasn't so many lanes who faking. Gotta cut the gut up the pig to bring home the bacon. I only deal with the real, I see the fake and I shake it. You got to steal your tools. Cause the game has changed and it seems like it has no rules. Man, you got to steal your tools. Cause the game has changed and it seems like it has no rules.
Lord, forgive me, I'm a sinner. I'll repent and say grace before breakfast and dinner. Call me prodigal son. Lord, forgive me for my absence. I needed time to myself. Forgive me for my actions. Lord, hold me down with my family. That's all I'm asking. These trials and tribulations from facing them got me spazzing. God said we get no more than we can bear. Well, I can barely bear witness to the current affairs. I don't trust police. All lives matter. Hillary's crooked. Donald Trump is a bastard. I hate to say it, but really let's face it, I'm forced to either vote for a liar or a racist. And even if I vote for the lesser of two evils, I'm labeled a minority and not equal. There are troubling times in the kingdom. You better stay on your tools, you gon' need them. Yeah. You got to stay on your tools. Cause the game has changed and it seems like it has no rules. Man, you got to stay on your tools. Cause the game has changed and it seems like it has no rules. I'm going in on these motherfuckers. I'ma bring this wet shit back, niggas. I'm going in on these motherfuckers. I'ma bring this wet shit back, niggas. I'm going in on these motherfuckers. I've been hustling all my life, niggas. On this microphone, I ain't living nice, niggas. Never having, always want something hard, grinding, sacrificing, paying dues with my life, niggas. Yeah, hear him saying he ain't paid enough. On the reverse, hear me saying I don't give a fuck. You know we smoked out everywhere that he go. Grinding pushing you is like I'm about to move a kilo. Been rock, been spitting, been had to give. Take the mall catalog, we been dropping shit. West Coast shit clean, boy, we keep it crisp. If you don't smell a blunt burning, one getting lit. Bitches talking, asking when the next chapter dropping. Tell them niggas streets and money, all we got in common. So real about this game, me and with the fake and pull up, get a fucking blaze with my finger, but I'ma keep it mob. There's a TV in your truck, got a nigga head bob, and tell him what it is, bro. Nigga, hit that shit right here, though. That West Coast shit slapping through your ear. I'ma keep it lit, yeah, I'ma keep it mob. There's a TV in your truck, got a nigga head bob, and tell him what it is, bro. Nigga, hit that shit right here, though. That West Coast shit slapping.
Anna, are you in the building? Where you at, Anna? I guess you ain't in the building yet.
Yo, Ro, that was some slap, man. Slap.
I know it was, but I don't know what just happened to Anna. But all right, man, we're gonna just keep this moving, I guess.
Oh, she said let's come back after the song.
Oh, here she comes.
Yeah. What happened?
That song was slap.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to. I didn't want to take over your show and keep going, so I'm trying to like gauge when you want me to come back on or not. So.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you saw the message. Yeah, I put a message to come back after that song, but it happened.
Oh, I didn't see no message. Oh, my bad. I was like, what? She ain't saying nothing.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I put it in.
We all got the message. He didn't get it.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get last time we were all here was when we were talking about the Derek Chauvin conviction. And I was thinking about what you were saying, Trika, because I mean, the big question that, you have, or that hopefully any decent person has, is like, how can you do that? How can you do that to another human being? So one of the things I kind of like to follow is the International Criminal Court. And so, it's this idea that you can have some sort of life moral authority. Unfortunately, though, it needs to be the people that were actually hurt. Yeah, the former president of Laurent Gbagbo, I'm just like spacing, of Ivory Coast, just returned. He'd been charged with war crimes and acquitted, and a whole lot of people in his country are really glad to see him. And a Liberian guy, Alio Kosaya, was found guilty of war crimes in a Swiss court. He's the first Liberian to be convicted. Charles Taylor was convicted because of acts he committed in Sierra Leone. But okay, look at this. Switzerland recognizes the principle of universal justice, meaning suspects accused of high-profile crimes elsewhere can be tried in its courts.
No.
So yeah, that's basically, so it's kind of like saying, okay, if we don't
That's a conflict of interest, first off. That's a real big conflict of interest.
With who? conflict between
the person that's being charged and the people that are trying to charge him.
Well, yeah, sort of like the prince was like, wait a minute, you shouldn't just be able to decide that you don't like what somebody else is doing and just try them in your country. The US did that to Charles Taylor's son. So, yeah.
I mean, you know what? I really question the word immunity these days, and I question the words innocent and guilt, because they say that you are innocent until proven guilty. But it seems as long as I've been alive, and I'm almost 40, you're guilty until you're proven innocent.
Oh shit, one of the things that is happening now with that is, people getting like slammed and shut up and punished for their comments. And there's an artist who had work in in the British Museum or something, and they stopped selling her stuff because somebody didn't like, because like people complained about comments she'd made about transgender people that they didn't like. So it's like, wait, a couple people can complain to the place that's selling your stuff and they're not going to sell it anymore? Like, fuck that.
That's something, there's something wrong with that. That number one, that tells me that person really didn't really believe in you enough to trust in that you are a good person enough to sell your stuff after that. You know what I mean? Like,
we live by these standards in work. We all know that if we write something on social media that goes against our company, they can fire us in a minute.
No, that's not what it was. That's nothing to do.
What it was. It was that they did not agree with her stance on something, so they made
I thought it was people
moral.
So what?
To say, I'm not gonna do your stuff here because my people that come here don't like it. Well, why are you worried about your people that come here that don't like it, not liking it? Because this is your store. You sell what you want to sell. You push who you want to push. You support who you want to support. And the people that don't like it don't need to be in your store.
And it was a museum. It was the museum shop. So it's like, okay, wait a minute. Somebody doesn't like the ideas that this woman expressed when you have an entire museum full of people.
It's a museum. You're supposed to be able to express everything.
Exactly. It's different. That's totally different. If it was a mom and pop private shop, like I would say,
it's a museum.
And
if I was like this,
if
someone at a private store, okay, the museum is totally
private, you can say whatever you want.
A public thing. That's a public thing. But a private store, I'm sorry, I always feel like the whole cake thing. Like I don't want to say it because I think that it's also like a Barry Goldwater kind of view, and I don't want to be a Barry Goldwater kind of person. But at some point, you have to give private people, the ability to say no. I mean, they'd say it anyways if you don't have shoes.
No, you can say no when you at your own business, when that's the only thing, and you don't get no state and city funding. But if this is a museum,
that's way different.
And we're displaying art comes in all forms.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to accept all of it.
Completely. Yeah. I think that's completely right.
And all she did was say, okay, she said she was one of those people that said, trans women are trans women. And a lot of people really disagree with that. A lot of people get real pissed off if you don't say trans women are women. It's like, okay, that is an opinion. That's not hate. That's not hate speech at all.
That's not malicious at all.
No,
that's not like it's not derogatory at all. And I think people are so sensitive these days.
Exactly. It's an opinion.
People take everybody's opinion like, oh, they're stating facts. No, they're stating their opinion.
Exactly.
And everybody's entitled to one.
Yeah.
And
that's
you
how they
can accept it or not.
Omar, I mean, people are like mad at her for like comparing, like, oh my God, it's so terrible. You compared the US and Israel to Hamas. That's what she thinks.
And everybody's perspective is different.
Exactly.
We all came through different journeys. We all have been walking or running a different path. So you can't tell me what I think about a duck when I think that's a damn chicken. Maybe in my past, it's a chicken. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, But if
You're
we
just-
don't agree,
You're
don't
on mushrooms. No, you're on mushrooms. It's a damn duck.
no. But I'm not on mushrooms. I was looking for some earlier, but anyway, that's another story. We'll say that for my podcast. But if someone feels a certain way about something, it doesn't mean you have to agree with it. You cannot agree with it, but at least have a little bit of leeway where you can say, hey, I respect your opinion.
Exactly. You know, don't get mad. It's you
Don't
know,
get
it's like-
fiery. Why you getting
Yeah.
all cayenne pepper? Like, get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, you know, that's just, it's not like, okay, yeah, there is hate speech and danger speech in the world, and that is very serious. And saying, you know, I get fucking slammed by people by saying that, by saying like trans women are trans women. Any of you fuckers listening to me, you know, I know I get slammed because like there's
I'll
an
roll up.
orthodoxy that
Plain people is cheap right now. If you want to go fight somebody in the park, let me know, Anna.
Okay, I sure
You know what
will.
I do when I have like opinions that aren't based on like when I'm not a part of that community, I guess when I have an opinion about that community, I tend to like I even if I do have an opinion, I don't want to say voice it, because the only reason I don't voice it is because I'm not a part of that community. It's like if I have an opinion about a deaf person, right? And I'm like, oh, what the fuck what's this all about? You know, can we find a better way to do sign language? Is there a better means for this? I don't get it. I might think that personally, but like there's no rationale for me to be like telling other people publicly opinions about their community that maybe contribute to their community.
And that you don't know a goddamn thing about.
That's what I'm saying. So that's all I'm saying. And maybe they're upset because of that factor. Not that you're making an opinion, because
I'm
you're
part of that community. I can say what the fuck I want.
Of course, you're saying it. Everybody can. I'm just saying. There are moments where I go, you know, I get it, like this, that, and the third. But I'm sure if I gave you a better piece of technology, it'd be better. But I would never walk up to a deaf person in the middle of their speech and be like, yo, pause. Let me show you something. You feel me? Because it's not necessary. It's just, it's not an improvement on their life. Even if I was like, hey, check it out, yo.
That's improvement on people's ego. That's when people's ego is stepping out of place and thinking, oh, well, I can go step into any circle and do it and say whatever I want to say because I'm that person. No, you can't.
There's
certain shit you need to stay the fuck out of unless you understand it. That's it.
There's opinion. It's like the word nigga. When white people go, can I say the word nigga? You know what? I don't know what to tell you. I'm not you. I can't experience it from your perspective. Go figure it out yourself. Yeah.
Go say it a couple times in the street, and then you come back and you tell me if you can say it.
Give me your information. Yeah.
Let me know how your experience went, because I'll tell you how it went before you go out there. But you can go out there because I'm gonna watch you.
And what if that experience comes back and it's like they learn from it? Maybe they still have an opinion that
some people need to learn. That's what it. You know, that's what everybody has it. So everybody's so damn sheltered and protected and so politically correct. There ain't nobody out here learning real experience to teach them the lesson for good. They're just getting this little slap on the paw shit because they said something crazy on the social media post or something. No, go out here and get your ass out here and say that stupid ass shit to real people face to face. And then see how you feel after that. Even if they don't beat your ass, you're going to feel a certain way because you're human. And you're going to see the effect that you do to somebody directly. That's why everybody's so many gangsters on these computers, because they don't have to see these people directly.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they can say whatever they want to say. They ain't never going to have to run into these people. Well, what if you have to run into that person in the morning?
Yeah.
Would you say the same things?
Yeah.
Well, I think, but Anna, I think you're very passionate about that particular conviction. So I think that you would say it. But again, it's just a different.
In a lot of circumstances, I wouldn't though, because it's not it's not important enough to me. You know,
it's not worth it.
Exactly. And
it's just your opinion. Everybody's totally entitled to their opinion. Don't get me wrong. You are totally I don't hold anybody by their, and it would be stupid because there's so many different.
Yeah.
I'm a logical
in
thinker.
this circumstance, I mean, kind of the reason I'm bringing it, right, because part of this thing about the woman at the museum, I think it needs to be very clear what she actually said, because she's being accused of transphobia and hate speech. So yes, it does. So, you know, I would bring that up in a circumstance where it came up. But yeah, mostly I'm like, no, man. I mean, I'm like, my opinion doesn't, you know, like, yeah, I mean, I firmly, people should, it's kind of an example to me though, about how you can have a difference of opinion about like biology or something, and it's going to be seen, yeah, you know,
as you being the biggest bitch in the world. Like, no, I'm just telling you what the hell I feel. You know what I'm saying? Like, she didn't say nothing wrong. She said her opinion. She didn't offend anybody.
No.
And it is what it is. If certain people see it a certain way, it's not like it's been around for hella years.
Yeah.
It's new for everybody.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So how people are trying to grasp it, you should be compassionate about that. And you should be understanding, like, let them grab it how they grab it.
Exactly.
As long as they're not disrespecting it, just let them grab it how they grab it. However it makes them comfortable, let them do that.
And I think there should be, like, pretty much for most stuff, unless like vile hate speech or whatever, there should be like a moratorium or something. Stuff people posted on the internet before they were 18. When you see that, when people like getting fired in their 20s for that is fucked up. I mean,
look, I've been looking at my shit from 10 years ago, and I'm almost 40, and I'm like, let me delete this shit, because my job that I've been at for 4 years might see it, and they might delete me out that motherfucking company.
And when
it's so simple though, but it's like people have to understand, you have to allow people the ability to grow.
Yeah.
Where I was yesterday is not where I am today. So where I was 5 years ago is not where I am today. But it's the people that show you over and over and over again, they don't want to grow. They don't want to learn. They don't want to progress. Those are the people I'm like, you know what? I have nothing to do with you, because I'm patient, even if it's going to take you millions of years. If you're showing me that you want to learn better and you want to do better, I'm with you. Yeah. But it's the people that are stuck in their mindsets that fuck this country up.
Yeah.
And they just see it one way.
I mean, that's why, like, I think it's so important for books like Keisha's to get out there.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, if we
I'm going to buy her book.
Oh, good.
Right now.
You know, books. Thanks, Spider. Books, music, movies. I mean, stuff where you can make a personal,
What's the name of her book again?
Memoirs from a Daughter of Crackheads.
Yeah.
All right.
And remember, I told y'all, my cousin just put out this book, and it's Beyond the Crack Generation.
Yeah, I want to find that. Would she even be interested in coming on the show? Are you gonna have her on your show?
I think so. I haven't had him on my show, but K-Ron Valentine. He's on Amazon.
Crack Generation. Okay. Yeah.
We went to San Diego State together, and we hadn't seen each other, and we're cousins. We hadn't seen each other in like 10 years before I went to San Diego State with him. And he was the first woke person I ever know. I was like, oh, look at Brother K-Ron, you know. He walk around here preaching. But I was still stuck in that other space, you know what I'm saying? But now it's like he goes around and he does speak at different colleges and places and stuff like that. I think he's doing classes at a couple colleges. Maybe, I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to put it out there because I don't know specific ideas. I just grabbed the book because I was like, oh, this is perfect. Because Keisha had me in almost in tears. Because I was like, this is so relatable for me. Even though my parents didn't go through the drugs things, it is still that pain. It's the same pain. Yeah. It just comes in a different way.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
And the way she was saying, like, how she didn't want her, when she told her dad he was excited, but when he saw what she was going to put out, he was like, what the fuck? Like, that's how I feel about me writing my book right now, because
You're writing a book?
oh yeah, I've been working on the book for a couple years.
It's
No,
rough.
for a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's because I start some way and then I'm like, no, I can't do that. I can't say that. You know what I'm saying? So, but like she was saying, she's still gonna put in her second book.
Yeah.
It's like, you still got to get that out. So
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what's the bad thing in doing it the first time and just getting it out? Like, we all know the truth. I
Yeah.
think it's just harder for people to have to read that truth and also know that other people can read that truth.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's the biggest part.
Because she was saying earlier, she's not like in touch with other people in her family. Because I was like, oh my God, man, your grandmother. I mean, but yeah, people you need to do it. You need to follow your own creative vision and what you got to do.
It's gonna be hard, Anna. It's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
But I'm working on it.
Good. Good. Glad.
Hey, Trika, what's your cousin's book's name again? Let me see it.
Can you see it?
Beyond
the Crack Generation. K-Ron Valentine. I think I did have something bookmarked that I wanted to read, but do you guys have time for that?
Do we have time, Roselle?
It's just a little short paragraph.
It's up to you. Do you
Okay,
want to do it?
yeah, listen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It's just the last paragraph is this introduction. You know, a lot of people skip through the introduction of books. I always read those because that gives you insight on what the book gonna do. But he says, with that endeavor in mind, Beyond the Crack Generation is specifically for anyone who is passionate for community work, violence intervention, urban education, or youth engagement. It is also for anyone who has endured or wants insight into the context of those who have endured the many challenges of living in urban America and emotional support to our youth. It is important to have an understanding of the emotional responses they often have to their social experience. This is a book that first points to understanding the sources of problematic symptoms of society and then offers a remedy.
Oh, looks good. Yes, I'll definitely look at that.
So Amazon is where I got it. I've bought a few copies and like given them as gifts and stuff, but this is mine.
Yeah.
I mean, I got bookmarks in here and stuff, like highlights. So
yeah, I highlight books too. Yeah.
But this was a great show, Anna. Like,
thank you so much. Yeah.
I definitely appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah.
And want to hear my voice and hear my take on things.
I do.
Even though I don't come on, I'm not on the show. You know, I'm in your chat. So if you go back and watch.
Oh, I do, and I appreciate that so much. I mean, you know. See, I was telling that to Keisha too, because she hadn't like read or worked before. And I was telling her there's like people in the chat and you're really, it's, you know, it'll be good.
Yeah, I really am. I think I'm going to try to reach out to her. So if you have any information I can get from you.
Yeah, I'll send you her email.
I think she can help me, like push me a little bit more with my book. Because, so many things she said. I was like, oh, this girl. Is this why Anna brought me on the show? Like, yeah.
Well, I planned to anyway because of Juneteenth.
Right.
We've been planning about doing that, but yeah, it was such good timing. Definitely.
That's how the universe works.
It does. It does. Okay, everybody, this is Global History Radio, and our guest has been Trika from Know Better, Do Better.
Thursdays, 9 p.m.
9 p.m. on Roselle's
YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're on Rose's channel. Rose, what's your channel?
Raj Joy 76.
Raj Joy 76. Put it in the comments.
All right. Well, actually, you know what? It's in there. I commented and it shows the channel Raj Joy 76. It's there.
Well, it's been a pleasure, y'all.
Sure
Oh
has
yeah,
been.
definitely.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, you guys. See you next time.
Okay, see you
Oh,
later.
definitely.
Okay, bye.
Bye.